Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem wa ba'd. Brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, we should be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has given us the benefit of praying, especially when we are living in Europe and other countries. We have the freedom to come and pray into the masjid or other places. Unfortunately, some of our brothers in other parts of the world, I'm thinking of Middle East, Africa and other places, where the freedom is not there. People have been deprived of their freedom, even to pray, which is very unfortunate. Now at the moment, of course, we all know the problems occurring in the Middle East. All the Arab countries are fighting each other, amongst each other, and a lot of Muslim brothers are being killed. But the worst part is, while our Arab brothers are busy killing each other, the Israeli government has seen the opportunity and grabbed the opportunity to take Majsid al Aqsa, which is a holy sanctuary for us. Now this I consider very important, and for the next 10 or so minutes I'm going to speak on Majsid al Aqsa, inshallah. Majsid al Aqsa, as we all know as Muslims, is very important to us. It's our third haram, and in fact Jerusalem was our first Qibla. And also the holiness of Majsid al Aqsa is mentioned in the Quran, Surah Isra, chapter 17, verse number 1, which states that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala took his servant overnight from Masjid al-Haram to the holy place in Jerusalem, which is Baitul Maqdis. And overnight he was shown the various parts of the heavens and other things as well. Now this shows the importance of Majsid al Aqsa. As I said, it's one of the two masjids mentioned in the Quran. One is the Haram in Mecca, and the second one, Majsid al Aqsa. They are the only two masjids mentioned in the Quran, which shows the importance of Majsid al Aqsa. Now if I just mention a little bit of history, going back, the whole problem started in 1917, to be exact on the 3rd of November 1917, when the British Foreign Secretary of the time, Arthur Balfour, he passed a declaration by which the British government were giving the Israelis, the Jews in Europe, the full support of the benefit of a state within Middle East. Now in the Middle East there was no place for Jews, no home for Jews at that time, and there was one big country called Palestine at the time. Palestine covered what is now Lebanon, Jordan, Syria and part of Egypt. The whole of that area was Palestine. And this Arthur Balfour, he made his declaration in 1917 saying Palestine will be divided and the land, most of the land will be given to the Israelis, the Jews coming in from Europe, because they were suffering in Europe. In various countries in Europe, especially in Germany and Austria, they were treated very badly. We all know what happened during the Second World War at the time of Hitler, when, according to history, 6 million Jews were exterminated. And because of this, the British government of the time saw it important to give the Jews a home in the Middle East. Now the Jews were given three choices. The first one was in Africa, in Uganda, to be given a country called Israel, which they turned down. They didn't want to go to Africa. The second was in Europe. They didn't want to stay in Europe because they've been suffering enough from all these governments in Germany and Austria. And of course the third place they were given was in the Middle East. They were going to be given the most of the country called Palestine, which they were happy about. Of course, the Jews wanted to displace the Palestinians, the Arabs, and take their own land. Now this is what happened. As I said, the declaration by the British Foreign Secretary on the 3rd of November 1917 was approved, and then the British government supported it, supported by the then UN, part of the UN, which was the baby at that time. And in fact, it carried on from there, so all the Jews were asked to leave Europe. Whoever was suffering in Europe, especially Germany, Switzerland and Austria, they were asked to go to the Middle East. And once they came to the Middle East, in the Palestinian region, the land belonging to the Palestinians was taken away from them and given to the Jews. Now the Jews, most of the land was grabbed, which unfortunately a lot of youngsters in the Muslim world, they don't know the history of this. So if I can just mention that after the 1917 declaration, the Israeli government at that time, which was in fact a government in lieu, what is called in lieu, They were bribing the Palestinian officials at the time. They were bribing the Turkish government, they were bribing the British government to get more and more land. They got more land, and by 1948 they had enough land to call a big country Israel. And now on the 14th of May 1948, they declared themselves independence. The State of Israel was created. As I said, Palestine was abolished completely. No sign of Palestine since then. And the Palestinians living in those regions, they were displaced, they became refugees. Some of them went to Africa, some of them went to the western part of Africa, from Morocco to Egypt. Some went to Europe, some went to America. In fact, in America, there are more than 500,000 Palestinian refugees. In Europe, there are about 2 million Palestinian refugees, and so on. So as I said, in 1948, Israel declared itself independence on 14th May. The Palestinians lost their land. And ever since then, they've been trying to grab the land, more and more land from the Palestinians. And in fact, now, if we look at the map, there's a very little part. We know it's been divided now. One is called, in the western section in the Mediterranean, Gaza, which they had a war recently. And of course, in the west part, which is called the West Bank. Now again, there are only small territories left for Palestinians. Now the whole of the Palestinian population, they can't stay in this place. So obviously, they're suffering. And ever since the '67 war, Israel grabbed more land. And after they defeated the army, which in fact 5 Arab armies, Egypt, Syria, Jordan, and Lebanon, they fought the Israel government at that time. They lost the war, and ever since '67 war, they've been grabbing, as I said, more and more land. Now what's happening is the Jews from the western part, especially America, they're pressurizing the American government. They said, we want the whole of the Aqsa sanctuary, which covers an area of 35 acres, which includes Majsid al Aqsa, the Dome of the Rock, and all the buildings in between. In fact, there are 44 buildings in between. So they want to grab the whole part of that section. They have already grabbed it since the last 2 years. What they are doing is digging under Majsid al Aqsa as well. And the main purpose of that is if the mosque were to fall, then they can build their own temple. Now this is the whole purpose of possessing this land. Because they want to get rid of the mosque, they want to demolish the mosque, they want to demolish the Dome of the Rock, and instead they want to build their own third temple, what they call the third temple. Now they claim that their 2 temples were destroyed previously. The first one happened in AD 70, when the Romans, at that time Rome was a super empire, they went to Jerusalem, and in AD 70 they destroyed the whole of Jerusalem, including the first temple of the Israelis. And then later on in 1077 AD, when the Christians from Europe, again from Rome and so on, again they destroyed most of Jerusalem. So they claim that 2 of their temples were destroyed. And by the time Saladin, or Salahuddin as we call him, he came on the scene, he conquered Jerusalem in 1187 AD. And after that, Jerusalem, of course, was Muslim. And they tried to build the Majsid al Aqsa again. But before that, if I can just mention, after Hazrat Umar came to power, radiallahu anhu, when he came to power, the first thing he wanted to do was go to Jerusalem. And as soon as he came to Jerusalem in 638 AD, of course, Jerusalem at that time was a dump yard. The Romans had used as a storage space, storing all the rubbish and things like that. He was so saddened to see the place being made into a dump that he wanted to clear it himself. So he removed his cloak, started clearing up, and he says, I want a masjid built here in this place, Majsid al Aqsa. And that was the foundation of Majsid al Aqsa in 638 AD. Now at that time, of course, stones and other things were unavailable. So they used wooden structures. They built a mosque of wood. Wood doesn't last very long, as we know. And then later on, various caliphs, in 691 AD, Caliph Abdul Malik, when he was in power, he demolished the wooden structure and he built a proper stone structure, including marble and so on. So he fortified the mosque. And later on, his son, Al-Walid, in 705 AD, he completely fortified the masjid and built a proper, beautiful Majsid al Aqsa, which stood there for a number of years until various problems of earthquake and so on. Parts of the masjid were destroyed in 15th century and then later on in the 17th century. But over the years, of course, renovations carried on. And the masjid, as we know now, Majsid al Aqsa, has been standing there for at least 300 years without any proper alteration. Now, once the United Nations agreed of the running of Israel and Palestine, What happened is, as I said, Israel was created in 48. Now the running of East Jerusalem, which was supposed to be in the Arab hands, in fact has now been transferred into the Jewish hands. And at that time, the running of Majsid al Aqsa was given to the administration of Jordan, the government of Jordan. The Jordanian government ran Majsid al Aqsa until now. And as I said, it's just been taken over by Israel. And in fact, the Jordanians have lost their power to look after Majsid al Aqsa. Now, this is what we should be fighting for. We shouldn't let the destruction of Majsid al Aqsa happen, because the Israelis are intent. A lot of the ministers, in fact, there's, including the Prime Minister Netanyahu, he says Majsid al Aqsa should be destroyed, and as I said, Dome of the Rock should be destroyed as well, and there was a third temple built instead. Now, which for us, it'll be a very, very sad day when we see that happening. Majsid al Aqsa completely razed to the ground. Unfortunately, all of our brothers, Arab brothers, are busy in their own wars and things, and very few governments have said anything. In fact, none of the governments has said anything at all regarding Majsid al Aqsa. Now, which saddens me, because even the Saudi government, which is supposed to be the home of Islam, they haven't said a single word. And I'm really annoyed and angry as well by to the Saudi government. And in fact, if the message is passed on, they should do something about this, that wherever in the world there's a problem against Islam, they are the ones to raise the first voice. They should be the first one to attack in words or whatever the Israeli government, the American government, and so on. Up to now, they haven't said anything to the Israelis. Up to now, they haven't said anything to the Americans, asking them to stop what's happening now. And in fact, as I said, every day, groups of tourists, Jewish tourists from America, from Europe, they come to Majsid al Aqsa. They go into the Majsid al Aqsa with their boots and shoes on, which is very, very sad. Even the soldiers have been into the masjid with their boots. They have destroyed the pulpit that was built at the time of Hazrat Umar. They've destroyed that pulpit. And in fact, when you look around, I had the fortune to visit Majsid al Aqsa last year, and when you look around the wall, inside the wall and outside walls, they're all over the bullet holes which the Israeli army fired at the Palestinians. Now, for the last 2 Jummahs, of course, Majsid al Aqsa has been closed, and the Palestinians have not been allowed to pray at all. And I don't know if anybody has been to Majsid al Aqsa, but the streets around Majsid al Aqsa are very, very narrow, and they had to pray the Jummah Salat in the very narrow streets. The streets are not very clean, very cold as well, stone. And what's happening now is from Fajr to Zohar Salat, Majsid al Aqsa is completely closed. Nobody's allowed to go there. And if somebody wants to pray the Fajr or Zohar, they have to pray on the street. They're allowed to go and pray Asr, Maghrib and Isha, but only pray at the namaz and out of the masjid. If somebody hangs around in the masjid, they are being attacked by firing rubber bullets and so on, or using tear gas. In fact, at one time when we were there last year, the Israeli army rushed in, and the whole masjid was full of tear gas. Now, I couldn't bear to see this thing happening again. And also, they're troubling the people, young people as well, because at the moment they banned youngsters under the age of 50 from approaching the sanctity of Masjid al-Haram, which includes the Dome of the Rock and the Aqsa as well. They're not allowed to go anywhere near there. Only people over 50 are supposed to go and pray whatever salah they want to go pray. Ladies are being restricted as well. On the 22nd of October, 9 ladies, when they were coming out from Masjid al-Aqsa after their prayers, they were kidnapped by the Israeli government soldiers. Up to now, we don't know what's happened to 9 ladies, and which is very sad, because again, nobody has raised a voice about that, not even including the Palestinian people themselves in the West Bank or Gaza. But they know what's happened. And same thing is happening to youngsters. Youngsters are arrested every day around Masjid al-Aqsa. If they throw stones at the soldiers or the police, they're arrested immediately. They're taken into police vans. And the way they're treated, they just kick them into the van and just carry them to the prison. Now, at the moment in the prisons in Jerusalem, it's unbelievable, but they've got children from the age of 6 to 16. Now, can you imagine arresting children and taking them to prison? And now they're the ones suffering as well. Now, if I can just mention also that United Nations up to now hasn't done anything. So many UN resolutions have been passed regarding Jerusalem, regarding Majsid al Aqsa, regarding Dome of the Rock, but even the UN hasn't done anything. In fact, since the war of '67, when, as I said, Israel grabbed most of the land of Palestine, up to 1987, 131 UN resolutions have been passed, and none of them Israel has stuck to. In fact, they just walk over all that. And since 2007 up to now, 2014, the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, they have even in fact passed another 45 resolutions asking the Israeli government to slow down this grabbing of the land of the Palestinians, because they're turning most of the Palestinians into refugees, especially, as I said, around Majsid al Aqsa and Jerusalem. Now, Jerusalem is not such a big city. It's only a 45 square meter city, and it's very, very congested, because in the east section where the Arabs, the Muslim population lives, it's very, very congested, and there's no room to move at all. In the west section where the Jewish people live, at least it's more widespread, and they can live there easily. But at the moment, they've grabbed, as I said, even the eastern section, and they want to build their own the dwellings there. What's happening again around the Majsid al Aqsa, people, Palestinian people who are living there, every morning the bulldozers come, and it's not like here, where if you want to kick out somebody from your home, you get a court order and then police or bailiff to get it. Over there, the army and the police just walk in the morning. They knock on the door. Sometimes they don't even knock on the door. If nobody opens the door, they just kick the door open. And again, I've seen that with my own eyes in the West Bank happening to the Palestinians. What they do is come with the bulldozer, kick the door open, remove the residents from there, and kick them out and possess the land. And on those lands, a lot of flats are being built. And all around Majsid al Aqsa now, you see all these high-rise apartments, modern apartments, just like we have in Europe here, being built from the old Palestinian lands. Even the old Palestinian farms around Majsid al Aqsa have been taken over. Palestinians have lost their olive groves, mango and so on, other plants which used to grow their fruits. They've lost all that farms, and all those farms are gradually being taken over and, as I said, built into a residence for the Jews who are still coming in from Russia, from Europe and so on, even from America. American Jews, or they in fact children, they in fact, some of them want to live in Israel, and they're coming from America to live there. And they are given first choice to possess this land. So that's what's happening in Majsid al Aqsa, around Majsid al Aqsa. And another thing is, as I said, Majsid al Aqsa is very, very holy to us. We should be doing something about it, and we should be raising a voice. There should be a central government organization, and especially we have decided to approach the Saudi ambassador in the UK, and we have raised the question with him. He should be approaching his own government in Jeddah and Riyadh. And if the Saudis can create a central body by which they can take some action, or at least speak up on behalf of Majsid al Aqsa and the Palestinian people who've lost the lands, and in fact so many were killed. We know what happened in Gaza only recently. Over 2,000 people lost their lives. And this war has been going on, as I said, since 1967, non-stop. And Israel, they walk in any time they want, and they attack the Palestinian lands, they grab the land, and there's nobody to stop them. Now, this is the unfortunate thing. If we are united, if Muslims can unite, then we can say something and they'll listen to us. But unfortunately, none of our countries are united, none of our communities are united. If you look throughout the Muslim world, what's happening is everybody fighting for their own ego, everybody fighting for their own seat. Even the Saudis are afraid of losing their seat. They know that if they were to speak up against the American government, who are, well, Saudi are puppets of America anyway. I call them puppets because they listen to the US government, and whatever they say is being followed by Saudi, which is an unfortunate thing, because they should be asked not to follow the US or even the Israeli government, and they should have their own thoughts and their own application regarding our law, Islamic law. But unfortunately, it's not happening. Now, as I said, the youngsters are suffering, the ladies are suffering in around Palestinian Majsid al Aqsa area, the Palestinians. Now, this is the first thing we should be doing to stop. And in fact, the petitions are being sent around some cities here in the UK. Now, if once the petitions are signed, then we can take them, as I said, to the Saudi ambassador and ask him to take some action. And also our Muslim brothers, if those listening, youngsters especially, there's a site called government.uk. Now, if you can go on the site, there are 9 other e-petition sites on there. Just sign e-petition on there. 9 other e-petition sites. Go on there, log on to there, and sign the support for Majsid al Aqsa, sign for the Palestinians in Gaza, for the West Bank, and so on. Because we need to give them our support. They are our brothers, of course. And as Rasulullah ﷺ said as well, if one part of the body hurts, then the whole part of the body should be suffering as well. So this is the same thing should be applying to us Muslims as well. If one community suffers, then we should all feel for the rest of the community as well. Now, inshallah, if we all take action, if you all speak up to approach your MPs and so on, then we can have something done about it. Otherwise, unfortunately, Majsid al Aqsa, as I said, it's going to go into the Israeli hands. It's already gone into the hands. And as I said, they're digging under the masjid at the moment. They've been digging for the last 2 years. The sole purpose is, if the foundations crumble, then they can build their own temple. So let's pray to Allah that this doesn't happen. And in our salah, every salah, we should be praying for Majsid al Aqsa and the Palestinian suffering, inshallah. So, Jazakumullah khairan for listening.